Just got off the bus and it let me off a lot farther up into town than I thought it would, which is good because now it's gone from 2.5 miles or more to probably less than a half a mile to my hostel. I am at the Blue Arrow, having walked up from down where it says National Museum down in that area. And I will be going up to that red dot that you see, which is my hostel. It's about 6:30, and people like in other major metropolitan areas like New York around Central Park are out walking and exercising early this morning. Get access to it, but we can with the camera. First impression of Hanoi is its beautiful shape, beautifully maintained. This is a floral scroll, probably celebrating New Year's Eve, just a guess, but it goes with the floral motif of the rest of this esplanade. It's still less than 7 o'clock already. Nice groups with their own loudspeaker systems, as well as the weights. I assume that the city puts this out for these people, but maybe some fellow with a concession. The police department to watch over things. Poster over there for Kenny G. And this is the Happy New Year. I think it continues until the 14th. Today's the 12th. As the sun pokes up over the trees, I'm at the other end of this very pretty lake. There are a lot of lakes, I think, in Hanoi. Lovely places to live if you're going to live here. Doing my first walkabout this morning since I've got 5 hours to kill until I can register for my room for tonight. This is the first thing of interest that I've seen. Gives us a look down into the interior of a block. Notice that little ramp to get your cycle in. Interesting little intersection. Look at those units up on top there. Look like they might be rather neat. Interesting multi-intersection, which you get in old towns. God, can you imagine going on a walking tour? Interesting facade, whatever it is. Probably had a lot of color on it at one time. All that guide appears to be doing is taking a long string of tourists on a walk. I don't think he's telling them anything. I'm guessing this is a holy site, but it's not much left to restore. But I assume that those are old roof tiles and new roof tiles, and maybe something on that wall that hints of what might have been. We have the remains of a wooden temple of some sort. Looks like it's being restored, if in fact much of that is brand new. Maybe this post here is original, and maybe that dark piece up on top's original. But everything else is going to be brand new. Usually it's interesting to look up on top to find something of interest. There's that arch that we looked at a little bit earlier, and that's kind of nice, but it looks like there was something old up there that's allowed to decay. This looks like it's just abandoned, filled with old something or other. Hang Da or Ka. Can't tell what's the chicken or something. Too bad that power line is right in the middle. It really craps up the front of it. Rather classic stupa. Looks like that brick's been restored. Interesting, but not much else to look at. It's really just a busy old section. Probably doing almost exactly the kind of things it used to do. It looks like a pretty old temple. There's another way tourists can make it an easy experience. That looks new up there, but the wood looks old. Intricately carved. Wonder if it had any color. I can't see any from here. It's like maybe a hint of blue over here in the corner. Let's see. Maybe some white. Combination of restored and old. Nice detail in that Naga head. Well, I'll tell you, these things would be worth a bundle if you had them in an antique shop in the States. The corner of Bat Su and Bat Dan, where my hostel is a pretty little temple. We'll see if we can get a look into the most dramatic one that I've seen so far in this little old quarter. Interesting, the right side is almost mirror image. Not exactly, but almost. In fact, rather than mirror image, it's almost a duplicate. Through this old part of town, you have to search for what might be interesting, and this might be a little cluster of interesting older architecture, but how old and from where it stems, I don't know. French, probably. They're just up from that lake that I keep referring to. A couple little spots that might be interesting. You have to search for it, kind of like Cairo. It's not in your face, like Berlin. A couple of cute, narrow buildings. You wonder why one is significantly more narrow than the other. And this one right next door, about twice the size of both of those. Ice scooter making its dripping delivery in the early morn. Things have not yet cranked up. It's probably about 7:30. This little island that we saw from the other side last night in the middle of this lake. We'll go across that bridge in a moment and explore that. Photo shoot or a couple getting married or having just been married, but looks pretty. There's some pretty flowers and this decorative median around the lake. An army of ladies comes out, cleans up all the trash with their turkey tweezers, I'll call them. They make an attempt with their dumpsters to provide receptacles, but either it's the Tet season or people just naturally throw crap on the ground like they do in China. I don't know. A little bit of atmosphere in the midst of the chaos of Hanoi. White flavored flower. And I'm not sure if that's a flower or a leaf. It looks like an extended leaf that changes color. No, it's a flower. It has a, whatever those things are in the center. And these look like poinsettias, maybe so. This morning, for my first real walkabout, we're going to do the Lonely Planet walkabout, the walking tour of Old Quarter. We're starting where you see the red square. We're literally going to walk across that bridge between number 2 and 3. Inside the gate, we'll walk through in a moment. People stop for a moment here before the shrine and this stupa to pray. The street from that entry is this part with this monumental statue. I don't know what it's of. here our view takes us across the bridge. There's leave an offering, some money, some fruit. Upon entering through the two Nagas, here's the next gate. This is the Xuan Temple. You crossed over the Hook Bridge. Probably at one time it had a more authentic look to it, more authentic purpose, and one higher than simply 30,000 dong entrance fee. Now the only thing missing from our turtle is the bird that should be standing on its back. I'll walk around the island, which is what I suspect we're supposed to do. We should go in the clockwise manner, at least in Myanmar. I don't know if it's true, but it seems to be the case of the temple. I won't spend much time in there. I did decide to come into the inner circle, since you don't have to take your shoes off. Here another example of the glorification of the horse for some reason. Don't know what that symbolizes. Still a second inner room, and perhaps even a third altar. This actually looks dark enough to be somehow authentic. Certainly the people who pray here believe it is. We'll go deeper inside in a moment. Money, food, sometimes elaborate packages left, depending upon how much merit you want to gain. There's a lady just brought in a platter of plants, flowers, fruits, and some tea, it looks like. So a rich bounty of gifts and food for the folks that maintain this, probably a monastery and its monks are responsible, I'm just guessing. This is the Tet season, the ideal time to make these offerings. One of the entry doors into the inner rooms, a considerable step over to keep the evil spirits out. Obviously it didn't work. Just focusing on this wood carving. It looks very old. A couple nagas, and I'm guessing a sun vision up there. Here we have a more authentic, or at least apparently so, and older than what we've seen in Vietnam before, but the same dark red post style. At the temple, this pavilion, and we'll go up onto it and get our view of the lake from there. The calligrapher. Haze of pollution from the incredible number of fires that are used to burn not only the Tet celebration trash, but trash in general. People, but not as many as elsewhere, will wear these masks. They're nicely coiffed. Osai. Look at how it has those authentic vines dropping down from above. Beautiful old carved stand it is. They're the same, only they're curved. This one attempts to dramatize the karst topography. This dramatizes their turtle. It's some kind of a mud turtle. One of the greatest turtles that I think in this country, or at least in Southeast Asia, died recently. Very revered turtle. Forget after how many hundreds of years of life. It's a setting that's quite pretty and would be lovely any place but inside of this pollution, noisy city. I mean, as a place to live. Seeing somebody put that peach blossom branch on boats presumably landed here. Of course, don't know what that round structure is for. It looks like it would be a feeding trough for aquaculture, but I don't know. There's pretty little water at the entrance onto the island. A pretty setting, and if they ever clean up the pollution, it might actually justify doing exercise. But I think that's a double-edged sword here. I'm guessing this is a do-gooder group teaching their children the right way to develop their future society. A Westerner is showing that he can do exercise too. Damn tuk-tuk drivers come up and start harassing you just when you're standing there, as though you didn't have anything else that you were obviously doing. Which I think transforms into Hang Gen or Dao. You see that as Hang Dao. See, right in the upper right-hand corner of the lake, and then it goes into Hang Bei. Correct. The reason these ships were made is that in the old days, each of these little sections was known for the product that it sold, and its name was the product it sold. Somewhere up in here, we should be passing the street of shoes, but it only looks like a block or two, so it may well be transformed now into this local market area, for lack of a better term. I'm apparently wrong, because we're still at Khao Go. The irony is this shows Khao Go being horizontal to the direction we've been moving. I found Hang Bei and Xuan Market, which is a continuation, at least according to the logic, of Khao Khao. There's another Khao Go running apparently perpendicular to the other Khao Go. Now found the correct intersection. There's Hang Dao, and it becomes up here. I think guidebook, of course, is wrong, as is usually the case. There's the monument right to the right of that building, on our right. You want to go to the right of that, in other words, our left as we're looking at it, instead of the way they say to go. That is Hang Dao. That puts you directly on the street of, guess what, shoes. Just like their instructions say, they just give you misdirections. Interesting is in the big markets that I've been in, as you've seen from the videos, you can see ad nauseum tons of this stuff that are on this street. A little bit of somewhat interesting architecture. Particularly this building, a narrow building. Whether it extends upstairs to the left, I don't know. If it was successful, probably yes. Not, probably not. But it would have been an afterthought after its initial construction. Some pretty carving. I don't know how old it is. I don't see anything that says how old it is. Pretty banister. Most of you can take away from this is that historically it used to sell probably shoes that in the day were interesting. Now it's just selling the crap made in China that you can buy at any Walmart or Kmart store for probably a few cents more than this. Pretending that I didn't have to backtrack, we're now passing Khao Go Street, that's that one there, one of them, and into the changed street now to Hang Bei, a local market. Some older gentlemen walking around elegantly dressed. I've seen a couple in suits this morning. We're the beginning of what up here further I suspect is a broad local market occupying the sidewalks. So we'll wander down this street just for the fun of it to see what there is. It should be a hodgepodge of foods that the locals need, eat, and that's pineapple. Out of tofu if you need. Sold out in the open, of course. Some of this may just come from local air. Put together some chicken noodle soup. This is where you get the ingredients. Although you don't see carrots on the menu often, nor mushrooms for that matter. Maybe in better restaurants you do, but not on the street. We got a gridlock because some dude decided he needed to make a backup and a few other turns that Nowhere else in the first world would you dare try. But it's dynamic. They'll roar through these streets at high speeds. But then when they get to something where they are going to park or going to do what he did, they go infinitely slow. There's another cow bowl. That's actually, I think, a different spelling. So it is a different street. Perpendicular to the one we saw earlier. We're going to wander up this street just for the fun of it. Well, not very far. You get it either live, or you can get it fresh, or you can get it cooked. Your call. A pretty building, has some cement affectation on the top on this alleyway just for the fun of it a little ways. There's not much down here, just more shops. What this is, whether it's a truck or a BMW or a motorcycle or a bicycle, you stop it wherever it's convenient for you to stop, make the purchases, and move on down the road. There's some live critters. Oh, and frogs, in case you were into frogs. Eels. Let's come up H-Bay, B-E, and we're at the top now where H-Bach is, or Hanoi. Being off to our right, pretty much petering out by the time we get here. It's a small little local market, but it serves a high, super high density in this area. Well, from the market, which is right to our right there, on up this street, we should see intricately carved gravestones. There aren't any that I can find. That Lonely Planet's usually 5 to 10 years behind. It's quite probable there is no more such carving in this area. Stripped apparently off old graves, unless they're just examples of what can be bought. Some look new, some look quite old. One looks like it has a picture of Ho Chi Minh. Number 87, we should find the Memorial House. Number 87, Memorial House. I see some brass plaque. We'll go look at. Traditional house of the ancient quarter. Interpretive placard suggests that it is a pipe shape. We have a brochure, but the house may be more promoting its ceramics. So we'll take a look at the design though. This probably is similar to what we've seen before. But I'm interested in the pipe design. Of course, the little center area. It was a very peaceful place. Here they've attempted to replicate it with a palm tree and a little pond. But what we see are the typical balconies, and the rooms behind those probably where the family bedrooms were. Built in 1890. Here's interesting, a doorway, and a doorway there, but also panels that could be opened up for ventilation. They've placed older type furniture. A little bit of carving detail, but not much on those beams. This probably was not a bedroom. It kind of lays out like my condo does in a linear sense. Here another partially exterior area. Whether this was built at a later time as an exterior room or arbor, I don't know. Very sophisticated looking grinding devices. Exiting the house, we come to the kitchen area, which also has a balcony up on top. Kitchens were always, if you were wise, placed outside the perimeter of the house itself. Remember, most things were built in wood, and kitchens have fires. Fires burn down houses and villages and cities. One wonders if this was the original. Don't know if those were ovens down below or storage as they are now. Now it looks like, and this may be a modern innovation, I'm not sure, that it was simply a collection place for rainwater, which would be presumed to be the cleanest that they could get their hands on and even knew about other than direct rainwater. This is about as direct as you get. And my guess is these additional buildings are the bathrooms here, and I'm sure were added after the fact, although there may have been the equivalent here. Notice the kind of quasi-pillars. It's interesting. It looks like a little mechanism for locking the doors in place. How it works, at night these doors would close, and then you just merely move these over to the center position. Now it was locked. Unless a clever person figured out a way of slipping something under here and sliding it to the side. It's certainly a rice ninja piece of furniture. stairway, rather modest actually. At the top of the stairs, this room, which may well have been a temple like this. It seems as I look in every house, they do have a temple of some sort. I'm saying temple, meaning shrine, anything along that line. So we walk out of here into the area that's over our internal open space and look down from the balconies. But it would make living on a second story like this quite pleasant. I can imagine this same concept in Arizona quite easily. If I were to build a house, what we do as a substitute is just create glass all the way across. On this level, we step down into a lower level. This may have been the master bedroom. I'm just taking a wild guess. An elegant, large bed or sleeping platform. I think they just put blankets out here, like I did in China. Teapot, but it may have held water. A rich inlay on the headboard. Out to the area that's over the kitchen, I believe. Look at the work on the tiles. Close up of the tiles. Imagine sitting up here before lunch or dinner, smelling the food, getting anxious. What was beside this building for most of its life? Was it walled in like this? Was it open behind here to fields? Once, May Street was located on the bank of the Red River. It was a very lively commercial harbor. Kind of large decorative wood carving, engraved with some kind of text that you hope to God does not come off those hooks while you're fast asleep. Rebecca. These are the leaves, for lack of a better term, that are used to close off the window, if you will, of the storefront that we've seen before. So they just slide up into the top and then drop down in, locking in place. And then this rattan is brought back down to finish it off. Which of course Lonely Planet is usual in competency abbreviates to P. Get a break, get some chocolate ice cream, and I'm regaled with some of my good American music. Country probably in every war over all time has found a way to promote their cause. If the other guy's doing it, we call it propaganda. If we're doing it, I'm not sure what we call it. And the role that women play is often so important. Here are three apparent roles. The soldiers at the back as women, and I don't know what the others stand for. These reunification, yeah. Another example of women in war. This is curious because the interpretation is apparently chicken breeding development, but it's a Hanlong. It is an anniversary of 10 years defeat of the strategic B-52 plane of American Army, where I believe they have one of the bombers that was shot down. To take the heat off the Americans a bit, some of these posters deal with the French domination. But no surprise that Ho Chi Minh would be the George Washington of Vietnam. He is known for its late-night bars, but it's also kind of an art street, as well as everything else, which most streets are now. This is where I found the propaganda store, and we'll wander up to the end here and then search out a temple. A chunk of French architecture, I guess, snuck into this small alleyway. These are carved stamps for printing on paper that you can buy. Xin chào. These are for sale, but you could put them on your letters or your stationery. You can probably have gorgeous dresses made. Wow. Late night bars, quiet as they rest up. Hang Vom, V-U-O-M, we'll hang a left here and go down and find a temple there. You can see a place where that looks like a cooking stove, but I bet you 10 to 1 they burn all their trash in it also. Kind of kick the smoke any place but inside that shop. You know the place has gone to hell when? And at this busy intersection, we have arrived at where there is two unique things. That police officer, it's more like the military, and WC, first one I've seen, I think, in Hanoi. And here is the Bach Ma Temple, which we'll go take a look at. Interesting bush, because you have this very small wizened up fruit here, and then this one which looks so different than the other one. Yet some appears to come from the same tree. A shrine within the temple. And this temple has a main room that we're on the side of right now. Now we're looking inside the main room here. And then another room we'll go back and take a look at now. This is interesting. I've seen it before. It looks like something you'd see in England. There's a brass version of our iconic bird and turtle. On the right side of the main room, the smoke from the incense, while pretty to smell, is almost gagging. What the three women figures characterize. My way along Nguyen Sieu, I looked up a side street and saw this little temple that I wanted to explore. Nicely cared for, whatever it is. Whether it's somebody's house or not, I don't know, but I suspect it is. It might be someone's home. Well, maybe not. It's hard to tell. We'll go with the pleasure of walking right straight through the middle of them. We are now at Quan Chuong, well-preserved old East Gate. It's well-preserved, but it looks to me as though it's a relatively recent remodel, if not complete rebuild. Interesting in that it once was the entrance to the main city of Hong Kong. What era that was and what the history of this is, I don't know without investigating it. Perhaps the stonework indicates antiquity. Those are irregular sized bricks, and to some degree irregular shaped bricks. Again, whether those bricks have been in situ in the same spot for a long time, who knows? All that cement work is relatively new. In the midst of another street market with curious little guys there. We've just come up from the old East Gate, which is down there, and we're migrating this way. This is a point of interest. On my right is this little side court. Fish got away and no one cares enough to go grab it, so definitely a fish out of water. Interesting looking fellow, dressed in real high-tech, modern outdoor gear. Street food munchies you could want. Big killer marketplace. More of the same, but lots of it. Feisty fish. For a way to get from the perimeter into the interior, and here I've got one. So it won't take much here because it's going to be so incredibly repetitive. Just look for the novel. Black mushrooms. Do with it all. Little thingies are in all of this stuff. I hope nothing falls over. Little buttons of maybe mushrooms. Yep, mushrooms. Shrimp. Not much here in the way of size, so I'll keep looking in hopes I can find more. Here, a portable pedicure. Side looks like more buildings down here. So inside here and see what we can find. This looks like a cheesy attempt to make a Western type mall, which is curious because over in Asia they certainly know how to make malls. And on the other hand, it might have been just a way to take a old building and convert it into something with more square footage. Go upstairs, see if there's anything. I wonder how this little lady over here, with the only one opened up seemingly on this side of this entire second floor, can do anything. But maybe like Donna, she just spends the time making whatever she's doing, jewelry or whatever. More space up here, more kiosks, but nothing's open. My guess is this may just be also an off day. Or it may be because of Tet they don't open this up. Nobody has an interest, they're all on vacation. Walking down that street, Hang Shu is transitioned into Hang Ma here. And this looks like a street where they sell all the kind of gewgaws that you use for the Tet celebration. You know, I wish I could get some of these Chinese lanterns, not this big, but just a few small ones. Second from the last day of the celebration, so we're still pretty much maxed out on all that there is. Another 360 of this 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 street intersection. Interesting building over there. That's all relative now. I say interesting, I mean it's relative to everything else around here. And as I pan around, try and go back when all of this second and third story was stripped out of here, and there were little shops, and you could hear the ring of blacksmith's hammer on his anvil. This corner at Loren and Hangdong that we find the blacksmiths, for lack of a better term. I don't think you'll hear all that much hammering, but you may hear sawing and welding and all that kind of stuff. This is probably where you have the fancy gates made, bird cages and anything else you'd like out of chrome or aluminum or metal. Kind of quiet right now. Just a little entryway down through here. You wonder if it's old. Looks it, doesn't it? Be a little temple on a couple of quasi-industrial streets. Reminds me of Rangoon with big generators sitting on the streets because the power system's so bad. This intersection, according to Lonely Planet, they sell lots of rice wine, which if you stay in some of the homestays, apparently that's where they make it, out in the Tules, and that'll be something you get to enjoy in that experience. Maybe even a gift of. little bit of interest in the midst of all this clutter. What will cities like this look like in 50 years? Continue down Thok Bak to the south to look for herb merchants. By here the other day, and this is where you'd find fixtures for bathrooms or cabinet doors, handles, like your Ace Hardware store. Which proves they have the tools to make quality work if they want to do it. If they know how to do it. Interesting, because these are the devices they use to attach things to cement. Somewhat similar to what we have. The quality and the junk we get at our hardware store is probably more expensive if we bought them in the States. I don't know if those are shower curtains, curtain rods, or what. Screws, or rivets, or any of that kind of stuff. You just have to know what you're looking for. Little stoves, and what they're used for. Security box on the hallway access to the interior of the block itself. Notice how far you have to go to apparently get to any offshoot structure. And teapots. Looks like spun aluminum. Huh. King pies and that stuff. Across the street you'll see that we've now shifted onto another name. It's now Hang Thiek has gone from Hang Bak to Hang Thiek. These things when you'd like to be able to find them. Xin chao. I think these lights are either entrances or just so you can get yourself down there. Wonder what caused this. In other words, was this all open area and then they built shops with spaces between them and then put this corridor down? These things are pretty roughly made, like a family outing of some sort. A shop that does large-scale printing, but also sells signs of some sort. Along the street we'll see where they make altars, but I think these are probably gewgaws that are used to decorate altars and areas surrounding them. All along the street you get the same kind of gewgaws. Some of the altars that were made apparently along the street, or at least sold along the street, if not made here. The most of everything you see is no longer made here, but made out in the villages where labor is dirt cheap. And income and jobs short to come by except for rice and raising animals. Gowns, spectacular. Would be pretty plant stands, but not worth the effort carrying them all the way back to the States. Most appropriately, stuck in the middle of all of this is at least a very pretty exterior of a temple. Probably one of the most interesting ones I've seen in Hanoi so far, although I've not been out of the old quarter. Frames. These are some pretty works. I don't know how they're created. Painted on something. It looks like where we used to paint on black felt. But a small version would be a very pretty thing to have. Say the same thing even though they're different images. If you're into the culture, a big thing like this would be impressive in your home if you had something else, I guess, to go with it. So a young man I'm not sure if he's embellishing that or actually painting it from the get-go. I think that's pretty fine pen point. Added remains of a very pragmatic vehicle. I guess these are probably prayer flags or something akin to that. There's the epitome of your altar layout, I guess. Family setting up a home would buy one of these. I wonder if it becomes like an heirloom for that family. It's like an older temple building that was ensconced within the arms of an ugly, probably a hotel. And along this street are, guess what? Toys. Lots and lots of toys. She thinks she's found one. What will it be? We better let the consumer take a look themselves. Getting antsy because she's not finding what she wants. A little hands-on, that might help the sale. Oh, yeah, we're getting some positive input now. I think a sale's been made. It might just be a difference in what the facial image. No, she wants the first one. I haven't found one that I want yet. We just hung a right onto Hanoi, and our pretty lake is right behind that building there. Looking for silk shop to Li Kwok Su, and we hang a left and go down to this temple. This is an art and antique shop, and my guess is what that means is if you think it's art, well then we'll call it art. And if you think it's an antique, well, we'll call it that too. There are some interesting vessels in here, and they all do look old. Of course, one of the art forms of this industry is how to make stuff look old. All along this street are silk shops, but if you think you got taken for a ride in Hoi An, you can only imagine what happens here, since probably most everything that's here comes from Hoi An. This, I think, is an upscale backpackers street. There's also a central backpackers hostel, which is interesting because that's where I thought I was, by name at least. What's interesting, here's a temple, not that interesting, but it's Bodhi tree. And it's interesting that it's protected, of course. I don't know if it's by law or by tradition or both, from attack by these adjoining buildings. Although, where it does attack the buildings, I assume it's cut off. So here's the cathedral, looking just as ugly as cement can look. I'm not sure there's any vantage point that makes it look a little better. Niches look like they were filled with something and then all that was removed. The cement is starting to peel off. With that, we have finished our tour for today through the old quarter. I don't know what this old building was, but it looked interesting. It's actually pretty simple. The entrance is interesting. That double curved stairway, one on either side. These folks are ice brokers. That's all filled with ice. That's filled with ice. Apparently she's going to take that old saw and cut these up for people. Here's a chunk just sitting there. Apparently it takes a long time to melt this, even though it's sitting in the sun. I'm going to wander the back streets until my cam wears out, or the battery does, I mean. On streets like this, you can find little mini markets because there's a huge population that lives inside these blocks that I'm walking. And it's got to eat, and they're going to feed them. Here at the corner of Hang Bai and Hang Dong, and the old quarter is where you can buy anything made out of bamboo, including ladders that get you up into the attics that we imagine must be in these buildings. And people, this is lunchtime here, and there's some kind of street food that I'm seeing a lot of. It's like a fried finger, if you will. It has a portable key making operation. Probably carries the keys in those old boxes. That little battery runs that little key grinding machine. A funky old temple, which I may have shocked. I came down the street yesterday to tell if that's part of this temple or not, or just some decoration that was left in place, and it's now someone's residence. Look through the door, there's nothing in there but residence. I'm outside the old inside gate, and I saw some ga here, so I'm here having my chicken noodle soup. And this one has a little bit of a twist because it has regular noodles, you can see there, but then it has these glass noodles, I think they're called. Probably many different names. It's another of the few interesting buildings you can encounter nearby what might have been something in its day. Another mini cluster. You stop and look at things like this because there isn't much else to look at other than trash. I told, and I think 974 to 1028. The pagoda in the background, but if nothing else, a good place to rollerboard. Got a slight downhill slope to it. It's like some kind of a book fair. So we'll wander back out through that. No, not a pagoda, just a pavilion. Enough park associated with it. I'm guessing that a lot of this is just the remnant of the Tet holiday. Books translated into Vietnamese. Now I visit the Vietnamese Women's Museum. Here a beautiful mobile of what I think are those conical straw hats painted out. They're traditional gift boxes. What they held would be interesting. That's a traditional garments, of course. I wonder if that umbrella is the same one that's symbolized in Buddhism. Beautiful gowns. Love that man's. They actually look rather elegant in that. It's a thought. Typical jewelry worn at the wedding, probably something handed down within the family, each generation adding a little gewgaw to the pile. Pins either for hair or for garments, I'm not sure. That looks like cufflinks type thing over there. There's silver ingots given as gifts. These are old Taoist manuscripts. It may be said Tao. For that matter, it may be said Dao. Apparently our gift lists, I think there's a great analogy to Western weddings. An insight into this is achieved by reading the Burman while it deals with the Myanmar Burman Buddhist relationships and marriage, etc. Perhaps its detail gives some insight into this culture. Is the garb of the one of the small tribes, and inside of that drapery enclosure, it's some butterfly buttons. These are alcohol straws, if you can believe it. No surprise, made from bamboo. Sword given to the man to control his wife with. Just kidding. All of these displays deal with individual tribes within Vietnam and their special rituals. All of these displays deal with individual tribes. Apparently a wedding procession in a small village. It's interesting to realize that by analogy, those little totems and things that we see in their gifts, etc., are probably as important to them as in the most sophisticated of cultural weddings anywhere in the world. Rings and bracelets. That may be earrings, but if those are bracelets, notice how small the wrist is. The cloth used to cover the wedding couple's head. Assume that those last few that we looked at are of this culture's display. Assume that those last few that we looked at are. Next is of the whole, or however you pronounce that. Next is of the whole. I often used to think it was so curious that in the Jewish religion and some others, arranged marriages were the norm until you get to older cultures and older societies like this one and realize where all of that came from. A bunch of societies we looked at were patrilineal. These are matrilineal. A bunch of societies we looked at were patrilineal. These are matrilineal. Spiral bracelets. Man, you wonder if they were all worn. I guess it was worn as one piece. Wow. That's of this tribes. That's of this tribes. An axe, which is interesting how it's formed, and some bowls. Looking at this video, we see some of the old buildings of Asia made out of wood. Mungar. Usually that Hmong is spelled with an H apostrophe in front of it. Beautiful little basket for wedding gifts. Remember, these are societies in which gifts might not necessarily be large nor grandiose. Bamboo tubes for fermented bamboo. I don't know if I'm interpreting those words correctly. This is a straw holder bead necklace, and here an even finer bead necklace, finer in the sense of small beads. Here's some rings, whether those were wedding rings. Yes, they are. Museums have to use such crappy lighting. Like a wedding register, the local village elder would record weddings here. This would be a pretty precious document for a community, particularly perhaps as relates to land sales and who has priorities of control by various sons, etc. This must be like a wedding bower. I imagine it's set up in an individual room. But very pretty. It looks like something you'd set up outside, like if you were a nomadic tribe. Interesting to realize that this is how these people make their homes beautiful. Not the home itself, but elements within it. Look at the joy on the mother's face. Devices used for requesting a child. An amulet over there on the right, probably inside that piece of plastic. And then this necklace is actually composed of 3 kinds of metal. One from the family seeking the child, and one each from the 2 parents' families, all intertwined. 2 years later, she gave birth. And an old stethoscope. Love to know the date of that relative to when Westerners started using it, stethoscope. Being tape to measure the girth of the growing mother for sounds. Promotional posters. some of these kinds of things I'm sure we have today in India and places where there's in Africa where there's a strong push by NGOs and other agencies to educate women on childbirth. Traditional amulets. Seps. These are little metal tags to put on a child so they don't get mixed up. Bamboo knives used by midwives, perhaps, of the villages, for storing the umbilical cords of descendants of an individual. Isn't that fascinating? Tyke's hospital garb, water bowl used to purify the newborn. Devices used during the naming ritual. Baskets are beautiful, aren't they? You see women carrying these kinds of woven baskets on their back as they go to work. They're beautifully made. So functional with the four legs. Looks like a little stove. Looks like a stove that would heat someone sitting on it. Forth that are useful as the ritual goes in these societies. Modern medicines, etc. These are celebratory gifts given out or given out like we give out cigars in the United States. Apparently describing useful foods for mother and ultimately the child. Weaving loom that you see on the left, some kind of paraphernalia at least, that probably unwraps and makes into a loom. It'd be fun to see that in its used form. Interesting soup spoon. What's interesting is that it opens in the bowl of the spoon. You can only get so much in. How curious. Fish basket, and this is a crossbow. Is it possible that women or others use these small arrows to kill small fish and stick them in the basket? Apparently so. A little bit more elaborate design. This a fish where we've seen this, an example of it in rice paddies. But what this display of a typical Hanoi street represents, except we see a saleswoman's vehicle arrangement. Scales similar to what I've seen in markets on this trip in Rangoon. A delicate little scale. Perhaps by moving that weight on the left to various positions, you get various weights. Or now, we'll explore family life, back-breaking work, and you wonder what it does for their feet and the arthritis and their knees and legs and feet joints. Beautiful tools. You can only imagine the sweat that's darkened those handles. Tools look so primitive and yet are probably so absolutely perfect for their function. Us is grinding labor. It's to them the thrill of being alive. It's what they are. It's what they do. And has been for centuries here and all across the world. Reminds me of the brutal landscapes of China and of Peru that I've visited. But what hard scrabble land that is. Is fishing weirs? Just consider the skill and the artistry of the people who make these. These rare to find baskets. And yet this has probably been a skill that's been around for thousands of years before ceramic and metal bowls were created. I think that patina reflects its use over a great period of time. Imagine that a man would either be given one of these at some point, or a woman uses it all of her life. Then when she can no longer move, hands it off to a younger member. It was more prized because of the brass rings that hold that metal hole in place. Rice harvesting knives. See how they're used. Apparently you just pull the stalk through and it strips the rice off. I bet you there's a skill to that, so that you don't lose a lot of the grains. Some are more substantial. Notice how that one is so compact. And others are much lighter. Notice how much this one is made out of metal. The whole blade mechanism made out of metal. Beautiful baskets. Man, those are beautiful. Look at the design elements and the weaving on that one. And that one. These may be different colored reeds used to do this, like you would a material. I remember watching a lady make these in Thailand, alongside the road, outside her little village. These baskets probably for winnowing wheat and so forth away from the shaft, making cheese, grinding up the grains. Look at this one, a little bit more mechanized. Too old to go into the fields? We still got something for you to do. I wonder if this served as a seat or as a small table, as well as the beautiful basket that it is, that they are. Look at the beautiful design. Clearly aesthetics were a part of its creation. The tube for steam cooking vegetables. This was this one. Another soup spoon, curiously small. That's probably just like a mixer that we have for paints. Only it would be used for mixing what was inside of a pot. Passing on the skills. Notice that she doesn't use a knot to tie it. You see hundreds of these things for sale. Here's the implements of weaving. These are children's hats, but could be wrong given the stature of Asians. I think that's a little basket for a child to carry. May as well get them started young. This legacy only because I'd be afraid to be committed to it, knowing what I know now. For them, life is good until they get a cell phone and discover the world away from them. This is where you see life as it's always been called, that we have altered now. Grist mill, and I think the way this works is you stand over there and you push it, and you get it so that it's revolving around, just like a bicycle, if you will. Only this is now horizontal when it should be vertical orientated, as a bicycle pedal. Grinds wheat, grinds flour. But where was it that I saw everywhere the large stone grinding wheels? Absolutely everywhere. This and what you have to do to make this work, and it is an exercise, I'll tell you, is you have to get it slightly off center like this, so that when you pull it hard this way, it swings around with enough momentum to continue around. And then you push it with enough power to have enough momentum to get it to where it's at right now. This would be damn good exercise. You'd pay a lot for this to get the membership in this club. See on the streets. Not less work, I suspect. Part of the mobile that we saw on our entry. Isn't that a pretty sight? Don't think they're conical hats, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised that they're made the same way. I think is dedicated to women in revolution, the Vietnam Revolution. Apparently a saber, at least the remains of one. Weapon. I don't even want to imagine what carnage it has wrecked. This poor little kid started in 1935 at 14, arrested, condemned to death, moved to a different prison, for some reason executed when she was 18. Much like the posters are that we have, for example, illustrating how women in the Second World War worked in the factories. These women did the equivalent for their country. Bottle lamp, clever. The rice mortar over here, these are rice storage jars here. Presumably women carrying supplies to the troops. A grinding device that I showed you a few moments ago. This is brutal work. I mean, half an hour of this and you're done. They did it for hours on end. Saluting women, inspiring them to their roles. Every country has them. Drums like that one and that one, or that one at least, that one some kind of horn, this a megaphone. The Buddhists apparently in ongoing strife. Here are women trying to either get past or destroy a barbed wire fence. Ordinary women, heroes in their context. It's easy to malign people who were your enemies at one time, but very hard to do it when it's ordinary people, simply trying to defend what they perceive as their way of life against an invader. It's identity cards. Can you not applaud her courage? Commando gear, dynamite sticks, I guess. Here in training, here wrapping dynamite. We blame for the people on my side that died. These women? No. They're doing what they had to do. Had to do for their own country. It's the leaders that should be taken out and shot after a war. Not just allowed to sign a document and walk away. They should be taken out, quartered and hung from some gatepost on some city. This function from 1974 to 1975. Fourth floor. We'll just pass quickly through the various costumes. It's interesting what describes, differentiate, and more importantly, what might have caused the uniqueness between individual tribes' clothing designs. To museums like this, will we someday resurrect the various costumes of the tribes from all over the world that I've seen, not to mention those I haven't seen? Will they somehow get resurrected in some cultural rebirth? Nothing else. Will they play out some designs of movies of the future? Unique shoes. You see shoes similar to this on the statues of temples, on pictures of the nobility. Compare the profound contrast between these two costumes. The styles of hats, how dramatically different. Is that the point? Each group wanted theirs to be dramatically different and almost intuitively did so. These fairly flat, these most conical. Ignore the hairstyles. Have men always demanded, or is it genetically impulsive for women to beautify themselves through hairstyles and clothing? It's interesting to see women dress up, spend time, whether it's girls in my hostel or women in the streets, and yet their men do little, if anything. Fortunately, the black mannequins or mannequins automatically force my prejudiced brain into thinking Africa. And I'm not so sure these are not unfamiliar designs in Africa. Tallow used for lacquer, and I'm not sure what that's going on with that, but these are tools used for gathering resin, I believe. But their mouths look curious because of beetlejuice chewing, or beetle nut chewing, or betel nut, whatever it's called. Not to mention that they would have no dental care if they lose their teeth. That these ladies express in their clothing. I'm guessing these people are harvesting salt. Immediately south of that lake that we're used to, although we will see other lakes. It's right up the street. I'm en route to the hostel, but after I can find a large grocery store that's supposed to be up